Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
So good morning. Good morning. I'm probably one of the few regularly scheduled programs that's not being interrupted this morning by major world news that Bill Belichick is out. However, this is Civic Engagement Week, and we are going to get a gut first reaction in his new role as a city councilor to speak on such an important topic in the city of Boston and New England. But in all seriousness, I would like to bring in Councilor Henry Santana, new at-large councilor in the city of Boston. We've heard his story before. We're now speaking to him, and I'm quite honored as excuse me, as a Black man, to be able to introduce the honorable city councilor at large, Henry Santana. Let's give him a hand and put some love up on the screen for this good brother. I'm so proud of you, sir, to see you in the room. So let's cut right to business. Your response to the departure of Coach Belichick. Such a major issue that our city councilor should.
This might be more controversial than what we think. I don't know. We had a great run. I think all good things come to an end, and I'm very excited about where this, what next head coach will get, and where the Patriots will go. But I think we should all be very excited and proud of the work that they did, the championships that they were able to bring. We definitely got spoiled, right? And I think that's why we're going through this period of time right now. But we'll be back. We'll be back. I have trust in that.
Okay, Counselor, that was a well polished and good business. Listen, in all seriousness, like I asked mayor, other elected officials, I just want to name that it was so exciting this week. This is Civic Engagement Week. We started off with former Councilor Laura. We then had Councilor Tanya Anderson, and then now your city council president, ours as well, Ruth C. Louis Jen, yesterday. And so I'm excited to have you today. Dr. Amari Parrish Jeffries will be joining us in the 9:30 hour, but I need to check it and see how you're doing. You did quite well. I think you're aware that it's settled down to being between you and another candidate of which I was not supportive. And so that was interesting. How are you doing? There's a lot going on with race, things like that. How are you doing, Councilor Santana?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well, Jimmy. I really am. I'm like, obviously the campaign was, you know my story, the barriers that people had to, that people who look like me, young people who have to, and, to run for office. I was working overnight, campaign during the day, all that stuff. But it's a true blessing and an honor to be, that Boston residents, trusted me with this position. I did not take that lightly. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Boston City Council seat, and Boston residents put me in this position to work for them. That's what I ran on. I ran on having a work ethic like no other. And I'm just really excited. It's week 2 right now. I keep telling everyone I I got my ID, I got my email, right? It feels like orientation. But in all seriousness, it's a true honor, and I'm just ready to work. I'm ready to work on behalf of Boston residents. And the platform that I read on was on youth, right? On making sure that the next generation that we're seeing here in the city of Boston is set up for success. And that's something that I'm definitely not gonna, I'm definitely gonna take very seriously, and something I'm excited for. I'm excited to work with my council colleagues. I'm excited that our Madam President, Rusi Lee Jen, is leading us. And it's going to be a great year. And I think we're going to get a lot of things done. So I'm very excited about that, and excited about the opportunity.
Absolutely. You talk about working with your colleagues. Let's just be 100. It's an interesting time in the city of Boston. It's an interesting time to be a Black male. I'm sure you're very much aware of the Murder in Boston docuseries, the mayor's apology. There is a lot of tension within the council, and you are one of only out of 13. It is you and Councilor Brian Worrell in his second term, you in your first term. With some of the things that's going on in the council movement toward equity, if we observe some folks' politics and the way that they voted on certain things in the past, how do you plan to, Councilor Santana, as Pastor Marion said, to sort of keep your integrity of what you ran on in the face of some very interesting politics publicly? And I'm sure, though it doesn't distract you and you don't get in the sunken place of it, sort of the behind the scenes back, committee assignments are going on now. Those conversations started the hour after the election was the election was over. And so a lot there in that statement. Let me just start by maybe asking, do you have, and I forgot to ask our council president this yesterday, what committee would you like?
Yeah, no, I think again, again, I ran on youth. I ran
Yes.
on representing the next generation. I really ran on on education, and just the violence that we're seeing here in the city of Boston. So those are things that are very dear to my heart, that are very personal to me as a Black man who grew up in public housing here in the city of Boston. And so I would really love to chair education.
Okay.
I think that's something that, as someone who's recently graduated from BPS, someone who worked with youth for most of my life, I've seen the ins and outs, and I see what schools are preparing our kids for the next level and what schools
Mhm.
aren't. Right, and I really care about public safety. I talked about this last time. It seemed like during the summers, especially, every week, every other week, we were reading headlines of 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 13-year-old playing in a park, walking by this street, and we're losing, people. And it's not just with gun violence. We just saw the story about, speeding the other day, and
Yes.
all of these different things, right? So we really need to make sure that we're really prioritizing, all our residents, but specifically, I really want to protect our youth. I really want to protect our young people, and get them involved, get them civically engaged, which is why I'm excited to be a part of this week, right? In this program for you. And so, I think education is something that's very important to me. Public safety is very important to me, and housing. Housing is the third one I'll mention, where it's expensive to live here in the city of Boston, right? And as someone who's a renter in Dorchester, as someone who wants to have a family, who wants to raise a family here in the city of Boston, who wants to be a homeowner one day, these are things that I'm going to have to go through, right? And I don't see, even right now, I don't see the pathway for me to become a homeowner right here in the city of Boston. And now, as a sitting elected official, if a sitting elected official can't see the pathway, how do you expect many people across the city to see that pathway, right? So we need to make that accessible. We need to make that affordable, and that's something that I'm not going to do alone, right? I'm going to advocate, but I'm really looking forward to working with my city council colleagues, to work as a unit, to really push the city forward, but also with the mayor's administration and the other elected officials across the city and state, to make sure that this is a top priority.
Absolutely. And I want to also mention the county, just to be intentional about that, because that includes our district attorney. And when you talk about youth education, being a Black male, dealing with the county can be It is a required liaising in order to get more equity done, especially for Black males. I'm going to come back to the point that you made about, being a sitting city councilor, and still it's a foggy, interesting lens to get to home ownership. I want to come back to that because one of the first things that hit the papers were you all voted for a raise. And with that, that can be a real issue because presumption would be, oh, you six figures now, y'all just gave yourself a raise. But we'll go back to that. I wanted to stay within the context of the part of that first big question that you talk about education, and you can't be a Black man and talk about education without considering the school to prison pipeline. Um, there are things in systemic structures that aren't favorable toward us as Black men. I had mentioned before in that big question, there are a lot of issues of race on the council. Let's just keep that 100. How are you going to navigate keeping your integrity, keeping true, and leading from your experience as a Black man in the midst of some very interesting times within our city?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think it goes back to where it all started, right? My parents, right? Like I owe everything to my parents in terms of the sacrifices that they made, but the values that they raised us in Mission Hill, right? I mean, I'm a proud product of Mission Hill, proud product of public housing in Mission Hill. But we were immigrants, right? Didn't know the language, so there was different barriers that we had to face, and the home was our sacred place. Our parents really made sure that the only thing that their kids had to worry about, and and my parents referenced these and during the inauguration, was making sure that you're going to school, making sure that you're getting good grades, and making sure that your room is clean.
Mhm.
Those were our only responsibilities, right? And that allowed us to really focus in on our school, really focus on our education. But those values that we were raised with, to allow us to dream big, but to never forget where we came from. I got to visit, Dominican Republic, my family back in Dominican Republic after the election, and it it grounds you, right? It grounds you. It makes you realize all the privileges that we have here, here at just being here in America, being here in a city like Boston. So I would say those values that my parents really raised me with are the things that are going to keep me grounded. I also have to credit, I think a lot of I'm the one on the ballot. I'm the one on the pictures, but the team that you surround yourself with is going to make all the difference. It's going to make it or break it in this world of politics, right? And I was very lucky to have an incredible campaign staff. And right now, being week 2, I'm building a team and city council that's going to be reflective of the city, who's going to work hard on behalf of the city. And I think having close people in your circle who know who you are, who know this city, who know where the city needs to go. I think those are the type of things that are going to keep me grounded. I mean, again, I'm a Black man. I'm a 28-year-old Black man who grew up in Alice Taylor BHA apartments, right? Went to Boston Public Schools. Grew up here in the city of Boston. It's a different perspective when you put it that way, right? Every single time, I've been able to accomplish a lot, but it's never been easy. It's never been handed to me, right? I've worked to create these opportunities, and I'm going to continue to work now in this position on behalf of Boston residents. So I just I feel good. I feel like I know what I want to do. I know where I came from, and I definitely won't forget where I came from, right? So I think all of those things put together, I think it will keep me grounded, and I think right now something I'm focused on is informing myself and educating myself as much as possible before taking any position, before taking any vote. Thinking about as an at-large city council, you have to think about the whole city, not just a part of the city. So again, just really focus on building a good team around me, remembering the values that my parents gave me, and then just working hard. And I think if I do those things, I think, we'll deliver good results for the city.
Absolutely. I thank you for setting some context in what would ground you in, and I'll push a little bit more for that question. There are some racist tendencies on the council. I'll say that in general. Racist tendencies. I remember when Councilor Arroyo went in, I think it was like 7 a.m. the next morning after he won. I was in his text like at that time, I think he was the only man of color on the council. And if I'm right, there is I'll say personally and somewhat for I think a lot of brothers in the community, there is a huge expectation of you and Councilor Worrell to be our voice, to be our champion. I'm thinking this in real time. Also to some level, some of our sisters, your colleagues, experienced some interesting things in their leadership. All three of them that were on this week named things. We know DEI is being targeted. In that context, in what has grounded you, Tashad from Boston While Black says that's a great mindset. How will you take that we have this concept of the head, the heart, and the hands? How will you stay true to your heart? But when those hands need to refer back to Alice Taylor if need be.
Yeah. No, so I appreciate that question, and I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat or try to
Please
pretend like
don't.
I'm
Yes,
someone,
sir.
try to pretend like I'm someone that I'm not. I truly pride myself in my professionalism. I read on that. I always say that, right? Like, I mean, again, it goes back to those values that of being respectful. Like that's
Mhm.
how I was raised. I'm respectful to everyone. I say good morning. I say good evening to everyone, right? Like I smile. And that's the type of energy and mindset that I'm going to bring up to the council. I think in regards to I think to the racist remarks and the personal attacks or whatever the case may be. It's easy to say I want to stay above that, right? I think everyone does.
Come.
It's when you're in the thick of things, right? Those things come up, and again, I'm really gonna try to, I take pride in my professionalism. I'm really gonna try, not just try. I think when people say I'm gonna try, you're not really trying. I'm I'm going to, show up, be respectful. I'm really going to build relationships with my city council colleagues. I think a lot of the things that we saw the last term is that a lot of things were being hashed out, once a week on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. But if there are conversations that are, leading up to the meetings, if there's actual relationships where there's true respect from one another, I think those things can be those things don't need to happen during the city council meeting. So I'm very there's a good group right now, Jimmy. I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 weeks with my city council colleagues. We're all making a very intentional effort, given the last term and all the stuff that are being said out there about really working together, about really getting to know each other, and trying to work as a unit. I think over the last few years we're seeing, right, I think the city council works best if we actually work as a body. We can actually push the mayor to do more stuff. We can push other elected officials across the state, if we work as a body. And again, I think it started with our Madam President Ruth Louis Jen, right, in her speech when she first got elected to be our president.
Yep.
She talked about unity, right? Last night we hosted um, a city council celebration, inauguration celebration, where we were all there. We've already had luncheons with former city council. Like
With
there's
Maureen and yeah.
exactly. So there's a real. It's one thing to say it, but there's actions and intentions behind all of this, and I think it starts with our president. And I think as someone who was proud to vote for her, I think that's something that we also need to lead. We need to help her. We need to help her achieve those goals, and I'm determined to do that. I'm determined to again work with every single city councilor there is, and work with our president, work with our administration to get things done. Right now, Boston is not waiting. Boston, we want to see results, right? And right now, we have a city council who can do that. We have a mayor who can do that. So we need to take all that personal stuff out of the question and really get to work. And I'm excited to be a part of this group. There's a real, it's genuine energy and excitement about it. And I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Counselor, it's interesting to hear a few things from you. You made me pull out I don't usually take notes. Alberto from El Mundo often says, Jimmy, I can't believe that you do this with no notes. But when someone makes me pull out paper, okay. So I want to name, because if I heard something that sound like contention on the council, I would say it. What I just heard from you was unity. Madam Council President yesterday talked about her leading a body. You used the word a body of colleagues like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 minutes. So I want to name that. The other thing is, now I'm going to be Jimmy. We have a relationship. I'm going to be a little bit petty. Not petty. I want to be optimistic, but I also know Boston Poly, though it's changing, it hasn't changed yet. I love your energy. I love the approach, and your perspective. You did name that, in the thick of it, and thank you for being honest. 2 things you said: try leaves room for you to kind of wiggle out. The other thing you said was, I'm not going to say the popular thing and say, I'm going to stay above it. No, sometimes you're going to have to get in and do it. I like how you name relationships and building before some of that stuff gets hashed out on the council floor. I see wisdom. I'm hopeful. My hope is that when you come back 6 months from now, that is the same in all seriousness. And you get the point when I said petty, because we both know Boston Poly. But going in what I'm observing from you and grounding, I'm hearing a different level of wisdom. It is refreshing to hear. And I love the perspective you're going to take going in. And just also naming again, and I was with Councilor Worrell the other night, and he was joking about Jimmy. Sometimes Jimmy. And so, but we have relationship, as do you and I. And so I just wanted to name a couple of things there. The thing I want to get ready to go back to before Dr. Jeffries comes is I saw chatter online that one of the first things that you all did as a body was give yourself a raise. Now let's give some context. Before the last raise, city council did not have a raise for years. I am also aware that Boston City Council is trying to become comparable to other cities. Other cities in their budgets have drivers within district of their district. Now at large, you would have the city of Boston. You travel in one area, they'd cover you. My question is, when you said that as a sitting city councilor, your pathway to housing is still interesting, I believe you all settled at what was the final thing? 115? What was the final? 115.
And I think they voted on it last year, and I think it was introduced.
Okay.
So it wasn't. Yeah.
No. This is Civic Engagement Week. Listen, we got in all by get an understanding. And so thank you for setting some context that this was something that was voted on last year and then beginning with the new council. Okay.
For the new council. And I think, it comes in increments every 2 year or every year where it will go up.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
see, that's why I said I saw some chatter in social media.
Yeah.
And so, but with that, 100, let me get on the path of making $115,000. Oh, the pathway to housing is clear. Why do you say that in a case where, 150, most people would believe, sir, that would get you on a good path? Speak to that period. Speak how.
Yeah. I think I'm talking about from personal experience for me, right? So
yes.
Again, I'm someone who was making, who when I ran, I had to leave my job. I had to leave. Right? I wasn't making income for 8 months, 9 months. So I haven't gotten a paycheck right in the last 8 months. So that, what I was able to build up for years in terms of just my professional life, those savings, all of those things are out the way because, I made the decision to run for office, which I was very happy to do and honored to do. Right. Let's not let's not act like $115,000 is going to get you a home here in the city of Boston. Right. I mean, it is incredibly expensive to just even think about, it's not just even about having the money on hand. Then you're talking about, the financial literacy, you're talking about your credit, you're talking about, how sustainable it is, how sustainable is your job. This is a 2-year term, right? In 2 years, people can decide, hey, we want someone else, like all these different things, right? So It's not like, when you're putting all of that into perspective, it just becomes difficult. And again, in my family, I'm, someone who born Dominican Republic, grew up here in public housing. Right now, a renter in Dorchester. It's just not something that it's not something that people can. Everyone wants it, but in order to actually get there, those resources need to be provided. So I'm like right now as a sitting city councilor,
Yep.
what I want to do is make sure that that pathway is clearer. I want to make sure that pathways for housing, people who come from public housing, that there's a clear pathway there. That there's a clear pathway for people, young people who want to raise a family here, who want to stay here in the city of Boston, who want to dedicate their time and their careers to the city of Boston, are able to not just stay here but thrive here. And I think every person deserves that. And I think when you're talking about equity, and you're looking at the $250,000 that a white family has, to the $7 that a black family has, to the $3 that a Hispanic family that has, right? You're talking about housing there. You're talking about, that's all you're talking about, right? So this is something again that's very personal to me. And I'm being, I mentioned it in the show, not to say that, oh, I'm making this amount and I can't see the pathway, but that's just the reality of it,
Yes.
right? There's people making more than me who can't. And then when you're talking about have student loans, right? You're paying student loans.
I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna stop you because trolls and no, in all seriousness, I appreciate your transparency, and I didn't realize that you were talking. I know from a personal, you're talking about your finances, getting housing. I appreciate your transparency because a lot of things Anthony names first-time candidate sacrifices. I'm going to be real and say you weren't making money. My end of the year is interesting for me. I got to utilize some of my credit, which increases my debt ratio, which is interesting in the credit score, mortgage. And so I say dude and yo when I'm really passionate, and I was really the honorable councilor Henry Santana, but dude, this is really, really real. And so we got Dr. Jeffries get ready to come in. I want you two to get ready to cross. I'm going to ask you one more question, but I would hope that I'm a commissioner on the Black Men and Boys Commission. There is a housing subcommittee. There's an education subcommittee. Councilor Worrell is actually one of the commissioners as well. And so we look forward to seeing you as a part of the support system to the commission. Let's bring in one of our other commissioners actually in his other roles as this is my first time being able to formally introduce you as Dr. Amari Paris Jeffries.
Brum, 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 brum. We need a horn for one of those.
No, what you go keep telling me is I need to get a grant from the city and Embrace Boston so I can get me a little soundboard. No, I'm messing. But Counselor, before you get ready to go, what influence did Dr. Martin Luther King, his philosophy, his life, what influence did that have on your leadership? As we get ready to go into the MLK weekend, the reason Dr. Jeffries is here, can you speak to Dr. King's influence before we get ready to go?
I think, right, we all learn about MLK from an early age. Obviously, as a Black man, I resonated a lot with, him and his story. And but I think the first thing that comes to me is just the courage that he displayed, for all of us, for Black men, for Black people in here in the city, well, in the world, right?
Here
and here too, exactly. But and I think I've taken that in many different aspects of our life, including running for office, right? The courage that it takes to do that, and I think there's just so much that we have to give credit and to MLK for, and we're sitting in a podcast where there's three Black men talking about civic engagement, right? These are, we're moving forward. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot more work that we need to do, right? But I think I'm very honored that we get to celebrate MLK and the sacrifices that he made. And, obviously, right now being here on the same screen with Dr. Amari Paris Jeffries is a big honor. So, but courage is definitely something that, definitely brings to me.
Absolutely. I want to give Dr. Jeffries just a chance to speak to, as a commissioner, as a Black man in the city. How exciting is it, or not to put words in your mouth, the increase in leadership on the council? Some of the ratio said it didn't change, Felix, but we also have Enrique, Councilor Pepin as well. Dr. Jeffries, seeing this young man, I'm sure you're familiar with him and his story. What is it that you would say to him just to encourage him and affirm him as he gets ready to step into an interesting space sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I want to say I am excited, and congratulations to the counselor. It is such a huge deal to have you on the council, and in the shadow, particularly in the documentary around the Charles Stewart case. We've come a long way. We've got a long way to go. But sometimes I think while you're in the midst of the fight, it's hard to see the progress. And I think your leadership is a part of the progress. I think, last year we put out a report with the Boston Indicators, Boston Foundation around the so-called decrease in the Black population of Boston, and really framed it as an increase because we have had a history of not including Afro-Latinos in the count as Black Bostonians, right? Speaking Spanish does not exclude you from being Black. We're culturally different, but it does not exclude you. And so Boston has a pretty powerful, robust Black community. We've moved neighborhoods. There's been a history of migration even within the city, starting as Beacon Hill, the really one of America's oldest Black neighborhoods, which is why we felt like we need to memorialize the embrace and put a shingle to honor those residents and citizens in one of America's oldest Black neighborhood, to where now a lot of us are in Hyde Park, still in Mattapan, Roxbury, of course, Dorchester, but the migration has shifted to that section of the city, the southern parts of our city.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you speaking to identifying the leadership. I just hear so much from the council, so we're excited. Council, I know you're probably a little bit over time. I want to stay in good with your team. So I appreciate you coming in. Maybe we'll see you sometime this weekend.
Absolutely, very soon. You know how to get a hold of me.
I know. I'm alluding to something else. There's a big going on this weekend.
We're definitely looking forward to working with you and supporting your work and vision. And thank you for all that you do.
I want to say to Pam, Dios that okay, counselor, help me. Dios. Okay, and what does that mean?
God bless you.
Oh, okay. See, Pam is teaching me all type of things. She was helping me with my Creole the other day and Spanish today. Counselor, thank you so much, and we will definitely be in touch. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Doctor,
sir, doctor, professor. It's always great to be with you. It's always great to be with you, man.
I'm talking about you. Dr. Jeffries. What's up, brother?
I'm good, man.
You haven't been on here in I've been on your platform. But you haven't been on here in a while. I think it was you and Dr. McCreary was the last time you all were on, like in late 22.
I mean, you've been doing big things, and so and so I haven't been on physically, but I've been on spiritually. So
you about to really get me because I you ain't right.
That's our role. I don't need to be on here physically to be always supporting you and being on here. So I appreciate what you do for all of us in the community, and especially thinking about the King holiday. The role of narrative is such an important piece, and telling a story, telling our stories, reframing a story. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Amari, for taking the time and coming. I'm going to keep us focused on the wonderful things that you and Embrace Boston are doing. As a part of that, we can just not skip over the fact that, almost a year ago, I talked about being on your platform. One of the biggest social media, hey, is that you? Was that you? Moments in my life is, hey, are you the guy that was directing the choir at the Embrace release? So I want to thank you, sir, for that opportunity to be a part of that. A lot of them were hitting me this year, but there's not programming that would, have a choir in place. And so we thank you for that opportunity. You'll hear more about Voices of Embrace soon. But Dr. Jeffries, first of all, how are you doing? You move in a space where, and I don't know why I've been saying the Embrace Institute lately. I don't know if anything's going on in the atmosphere, but you're a voice around a lot of DEI, a lot of things when it comes to race and inequity. And that is very interesting to have lived it, to try to push, more equity. How are you, with all due respect, Dr. Jeffries, how are you as Amari doing?
I'm coming out of the holiday, and we all make resolutions entering New Year's, and so I've tried my best. And one of them was to eat more candy. I'm going, just doing some things that I like to do. I think this work is tough, and so those little pleasures. I'm a coffee drinker. I love sweets and snacks, so I've tried to indulge in those small guilty pleasures. I think in this beginning of the year, where we start the year with the King holiday. We are 1 year into this anniversary of the unveiling of the Embrace. We're entering then into Black History Month, in a time where there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of hate, and there's the sentiment that the work of equity and justice is being dismantled, right? So this is, I don't know if during the other two reconstructions, the leaders realized that the construction was stalling. And so maybe this is a moment where some of us who've been doing this work can take stock of, is this part of that stall that happens after reconstructions, and what can we do differently? And so I've been thinking about that. It's definitely a celebratory time. It's honoring Dr. King. It is commemorating and celebrating the other leaders, civil rights activists on the 1965 Freedom Memorial Plaza. It's celebrating the anniversary of the unveiling on the Embrace, but we're in a context. And so I just want to be conscious of the context.
I really appreciate that. And you're a wonderful interviewee, because I want to ask you to speak to the fact that you talked about DEI being literally dismantled. There is an article in the Wall Street Journal where that one of the architects, was it Christopher, whatever his name is, Rufo, whatever his name is, laid out how DEI, Dr. Gay, and all of that, there is this intentional plan. And so my thought was, okay, now I know. Now, I mean, you're always smart, but that you see that, doctor, because when you talked about, if no one, we don't know if anyone captured the stalling after the previous two reconstructions, that resonated with me. We often classify the response to what's going on as fear, and maybe that is what's stalling. And so thank you for that nugget. I want to ask you, a lot of our women are leading. How do we protect them? Councilor Laura talked the other day about publicly protecting them, saying things. I appreciate you. Mayor Wu took a lot of flack for apologizing to the Bennett family. Here I am either that evening or the next morning, and you issued a statement. How do we as Black men, we'll easily jump if somebody does something physically. Absolutely. We'll do our best to de-escalate, but if we have to, how do we strategically, proactively protect our women and the concept of DEI and ourselves, of course? Big question there, but we got Dr. Jeffries here to break it down for us.
Yeah, I think it's tough because, while we, it's like being, in the bed with a small blanket, and someone else is trying to get covered with the blanket too, right? And so it's like there's always a part peeking out, and your elbow's cold, your knees cold, or something, right? And so like the blanket is never big enough, but we have a tendency of always wanting to share the metaphor blanket.
Yep.
And that's who we are as people. That's why we do this work. And so I think sometimes it's speaking out, understanding that as Black leaders and other leaders of color, we're always vulnerable in that way. There's other ways that we can support. Sometimes it's to create a shingle or an opportunity for folks who are courageous and find themselves on the ropes. How can we create a fellowship? How can we create a temporary opportunity for folks who were courageous and find themselves being ostracized, right? Like, how do we create spaces for those actors to join our organizations, even for a short period of time, right? Because sometimes people just need a desk, a card, or something that shows that they belong to an organization to kind of level set. And that's something that a lot of us, even with small capacity, could do. Just bring someone on for a month as a fellow or a advisor, if you can, right? I think people having a launch place, an email address in which to think about their next move, is important for us to do. We always got to create a little, sometimes you didn't have the extra bedroom, but you always had a couch. And so again, provide other leaders who do courageous things, the metaphor couch in your spaces.
When we get off of here, you're going to Sunday night, you're going to get a nice little conversation because you're messing with me today. Went totally different from where I thought you were going to go. And what I heard there was the family, the sense of belonging when people are ostracized and whatnot. And as entrepreneurs and people that move in this space, sometimes you do feel like an island. And so the ability for people to, bring them on for a fellow, presumably there's some sort of compensation in there and whatnot, because there is a financial aspect. There is an aspect of, am I worth it? There's an aspect of, if you're not careful, you will not value yourself as you did often. Sometimes as humans, we associate our value and our impact with what or whom we are associated. And so, sir, thank you for that sort of different perspective. If I could ask you to also speak to the macro of dismantling, is it buying black? Is it posting on social media? Is it not sharing online information from racist troll platforms? What can we do in a proactive manner while the other offering, when the worst happens, offering the desk, the email, the family, the association? What can we do proactively to what's the word, etch away at this mountain of systemic racism?
Yeah, and I think everything that you said is spot on, and I would agree and co-sign, and also it advise the same things. And it's not to say that we have to be robotic around our. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. We don't have to agree with every single leader, even if they look like us. But I think there's a way that discourse doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be so publicly disparaging, and it doesn't have to be in a way that permanently paints the person you have a disagreement with in a bad light as Black leaders. There are ways that we really need our own spaces to have conversations, and so that we could resolve those disagreements, because we should absolutely not agree on everything. We should not agree on everything. Because we're not robots. But there's a way that we can do it, because part of it is to solidify our tribe and our community. And I think that this type of splinters in our community also lends itself to this feeling that we can be picked off. And so I think that's the piece that's also important. So, I started off with the familial, right? Like, bring people in.
I mean, hold on, Dr. Jeffries. You use the word. I'm very transparent. If I don't know a word, the spelling and the definition, we stop so we can increase everybody's vocabulary. Sir, there's a little spot in the private chat. Type that word in there. Say it again. You said we. Oh God, did y'all catch it, Dr. Smith or anybody else that's in here? It was a V with the. All right, I'll have to go back in the replay and then text you.
Okay.
But it caught me. I said I never heard that one before. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. That's it. I think there's got to be a way in which we can disagree with each other and still sustain the integrity and the foundation of other leaders and community members, right? Because it's important, because there's so few opportunities, and really the role of this is to do your job and lead, but also, clear a path. Every person who's doing this work, and the counselor doing this work, has a machete. Their role is to clear the path, for the next, to make the path wider so that more people can walk that road. And so you can't walk that road if you're not on the road. And so we got to make sure that people stay on the road and are able to be successful there.
I don't know if it's because it's MLK weekend. It's the anniversary of the Embrace. I know my anniversary for Java with Jimmy, my old bishop, during his pastoral anniversary, they would just be in a way. Well, us and them would be in a way out place. Dude, you're out there today, and I'm loving it, because
thank you, brother.
The lack of, Thaddeus Miles got me some years ago. We need to have unity. We're not in unity. And Thaddeus was like, bro, we're not a monolith, and we
Yes.
don't have to be in unity, but when we can, we have to be unified.
Yes, that's
And
right.
the reason that these things can be wedged in is because we're not. You talked about basically that sometimes we need to have a come to Jesus meeting and still walk out the door, and everybody still love Jesus the same.
Yes, and each other. Again, you don't have
Yes,
to
yes.
agree with people, but we don't have to destroy each other as leaders. And so, I think that is the most important piece of us moving forward, because we have critical mass if we are unified around issues. Like let us argue around colors of whatever we want to build, but not the fact that we want to build it in the first place. Let us argue around where it needs to be, but not around the fact that we want to build it in the first place. Like those are the arguments that we should have. Where, what color, sure, but the fact that we need to build together, and many of us need to be a part of this is important. When we think about the Embrace celebrations this weekend, 90%, we have a commitment that 90% of the dollars and the resources that we spend for our events go to Black, people of color, women, historically marginalized folks. Of every dollar that Embrace spends, it is important that not only do we build capacity of other Black and other businesses of color while we do our work, that we do it in a way that hopefully helps sustain. And I think if other people think about it in that way, and if people are going to do an event or a gathering or some sort of research project, any sort of vending,
Yes, sir.
that even considering multi-year contracts for even mom and pop vendors. And so like our video production company, we're moving to like contract them over a couple of years so they could build a book of business just with Embrace being the foundation. And so, I think that's the type of unity, because sometimes the unity, like you have to go, I think when you're in these positions, go seek the unity, go seek the capacity building. Don't wait for it to come to you. And, I think this commitment from us to try to, at least even in the way we spend our dollars, is important. And, can we build the capacity of Black and brown businesses through our work?
Mother, I got some church mothers in here. Sharon Cornelius. She said you were taught well. Absolutely, brother. I want to, I know we're coming up on time in a couple of seconds, in a few minutes, but that capacity building, side note, brother, I just want to mention that there's some capacity being built around comms, Black and brown comms firms and stuff in this city. And so whenever, I'll sidebar you about that, because you were a spark with some a while ago around having our voices represented, by us. And so I really appreciate that. You just spoke to the economic impact about being intentional. And I do the same thing. When I got unrestricted and grants, I'm targeting Black and brown owned businesses. And so to segue, and Pam says you're dropping so many gems this morning. Michelle says to follow up with her. Michelle Smith says to follow up with her from your last seeing each other. To speed things up a little bit, close to a year ago, this Saturday, I remember the date well because I was nervous. January 13th, correct? Was that when we were on the Common?
That's when it was.
A great thing happened. Now, I was going to show a little bit of the video, but I'm going to save that for Monday, for actual MLK Day. Where are we, sir, a year later with the Embrace? There was a whole lot of chatter, interesting, whatever. Where are we with the Embrace, and what can we look forward to coming in the next couple of years?
The Embrace is one of Boston's most visited monuments, period. And there's even a way that you can visit the Embrace on the app, stories.embraceboston.org, to learn about the other civil rights leaders that are also memorialized on the Embrace. I mean, we're building capacity. Our staff is growing. We'll be teetering around 15 people by the end of But by the beginning of the summer, we are still working on the National Embrace Center in Roxbury. So that is our next large major project, a music hall, a small business incubator, and a museum, a gallery that really highlights the history, the ideas, the art, the vision of Boston's Black and Brown communities. And so that is still underway. Our next research project, the harm report that really talks about the 8 injury areas of racism on Black and Brown communities in the city of Boston, will be released in February. And so we'll have a research symposium. Andre Perry is slated to come down, and Andre Perry from his work, at Brookings, and you see him on CNN and other commentators really talking about the impact of Black assets,
Yes.
and not just capital financial assets, but our assets as people.
Yes, sir.
So he'll be down for that, and so the work continues. I think Embrace emerged out of the pandemic and the Freedom Summer 2020, and I think we got a lot of work to do, and so we're here to continue doing that work for the city, for Boston, for our state, for Black and Brown people.
It's funny because I was saying the Embrace Institute, and it's the Embrace National Center, right? I'm going to start saying it right.
Right. The National Embrace Center is
National
the space in Roxbury, but the Embrace Institute is our research policy arm. So you did get that right.
I knew I heard. Okay. I knew I heard it somewhere. Okay. All right. I really appreciate the point about the research. There's 2 sides of the coin. Some saying we don't need any more research. We know what it is, but you got to constantly post-pandemic. We can't make a lot of people in this space. We make a lot of presumptions around, what our community needs and wants, and it can change from hour to hour, day to day. And so I'm looking forward to what's coming more from Embrace. And one of the major things is this is Embrace Honors Weekend.
It is, sir. Yes. It's important to honor families and couples.
Yes,
so our Embrace Honors Awards honors couples. And so this year, and in general, Martin,
yes.
There would be no Martin without Coretta, right? And so it's important for us to honor couples, all different types of couples that work together as partnership and family to do this work. And so we have 3 amazing couples that we're honoring: Damon and Dr. Kia Martin, Damien and Dr. Indian Wilmot, and Paul and Sandy and Paul Edgerly. Let me not all start all the introductions
with the husbands.
So excited to honor them, and then we are honoring 6 more couples at our Juneteenth celebrations, and so those couples will be unveiled soon.
Okay. I'm looking forward to, and if you want to, shout out to Brother Greg, if you want to hint and drop a couple of those names here in this. And I'm going to say this seriously, Amari, I really appreciate early on you, Willie Broderick, Reverend Brown, you all making this investment in what has, oh God, I'd feel the choke up, and what has evolved into a community-driven Black media platform. And I just want to, thank you for that. And also just reiterate the fact that it's important that it's not just me always wanting to break news and whatnot, but really these type of platforms need to be telling our stories first.
Yes.
Presenting them first before Legacy. I know Legacy and Major Media, they got more distribution, but we can shift the pendulum if we support, platforms like this. So thank you for that early investment. But then also, whenever y'all get ready to drop something or, report comes out, just holler at brother. And, I'll be glad to.
we always consider you first. Always consider you first. Your platform is valuable and for a lot of reasons, but 2 important reasons. One, it is an outlet for information by us, for us, interpreted by us. So that's important. Just what it is, the face value. And then secondly, you as the leader and the voice of the platform, right, as a model. And so it just can't go understated that when we see people that look like us in positions of aspiration in positions of influence, both directly and indirectly, we are socialized to think that is normal. And so when we think about the King holiday, we are socialized by this holiday, by the rituals and traditions that are surrounded by the holiday. So we have normalized the Dr. King as an icon and Black leadership in that model. And so on the opposite side of that, when we see Black leaders torn down, that also becomes a norm and a model. We're socialized by that too. And so that's why we began this conversation really talking about this subject as we celebrate this Black leader, as we celebrate this Black family, as we're in this backdrop of Black leaders taking a lot of lumps. It's important for us to also normalize Black love and Black support of each other too. And so, the tearing down might not be able to stop that immediately, might not be able to shut that down immediately. But what we can normalize is support. We can normalize around rallying around our leaders, and we can normalize around this sense of belonging and unity. So I think that's important. I think you've been an incredible role model of that.
Dr. Jeffries, I'm going to Amari text you after, because I'm sorry. I really enjoyed our conversation today. It is important that I named that. I definitely you in a different space. You in a different interesting space. I can see it. So it's amazing to see, to go back from Robert Lewis introducing us, and I think at that time you were at, I don't even think it was Friends for the Children yet. Where were you at before Friends for the Children? Look at Dr. Jeffries trying to remember.
I might have been at the Mass Service Alliance. I think you were at the city.
At that time, the City First Feds. I was at the Feds at that time. Okay. And so it's I'm enjoying.
I remember you. I remember you had a brown suit on when we met too.
I've only owned one brown suit, and we just thank God for deliverance. Speaking of suits, you got me stressed out about this weekend, and I'll just leave that right there. What I'm gonna wear.
You know how we do. Like, I think part of the celebration of the King holiday, right? It's not a gala. It is a indoor block party to celebrate the King holiday, to celebrate the love and the joy of the King holiday.
Okay.
And to create a multicultural space. And so, galas exist because, they solely exist to raise money. Initially we started this as a way to just celebrate the unveiling of the Embrace, and really said, Boston doesn't have that many spaces that are multicultural, but centered on Black culture.
Yes, sir.
That create a space for different people to come in and celebrate our culture, and our culture in the way that we celebrate our culture unapologetically. And so that's why this indoor block party, the MLK Embrace Honors, is now a tradition. And so we're hosting it at Big Night Live. It's what we call a sneaker event. And so people should dress their very best festive and show up and show out in their finest and freshest kicks.
So I heard a couple of things there, because you just released something off of me. You said it's not a gala. Dress your festive best, but with you saying not a gala, I heard no tux.
Yeah, it's not. I know that some people won't wear a tux. Some people will wear tuxes. Some people won't. Okay. Right? Should dress their very festive best. And if it's a super nice, for men, if they want to wear a suit, wear a suit. And a lot of people will be wearing tuxes just to show up that way. And so I think people should dress their festive best and wear their kicks.
Pam's in here messing with you. What I heard was, come on down. Now, let me tell some of my mother's board and Java with Jimmy family members, if they'll go down, I see y'all in here, but we're going to crash. Don't do that. Y'all are not going to put Amari in and well, no, never mind. Because I know Amari's spirit. Tickets are available at embraceboston.org.
Yeah, I think, and sadly, it is sold out.
It's sold out.
It's sold out, and so I think we really, thinking about the future, how do we stretch this? How do we find a bigger venue
Yes.
that maintains the intimacy? What's that balance? And I think we got to figure that out, because I think if we had more space, I think we would be able to welcome more people. And so it is sold out, and people will have to think about our Juneteenth event. And so or our Black History Month symposium. So in the symposium, it won't be festive. It will be informative and fun. But the Juneteenth event will be festive. It will be musical. The Embrace Ideas Festival is centered around Black joy, Black ideas, and Black gathering around the Juneteenth holiday. And so that will probably be the next time that we'll be hosting a more festive event.
Okay. Dr. Jeffries, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, my brother.
Yes, sir. To the folks that are, it was all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So listen, when I start stuttering, so Dr. Jeffries, let me get you off of here. And I will see you this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Godspeed. Whenever the voices are needed, let us know and we'll be ready. Oh, thank you also, and Greg, for the opportunity to do the Good Trouble podcast.
Our podcast.
That I had a good time talking to Greg. That was therapeutic for me. So thank you for that opportunity as well.
Anytime. Happy MLK Day to everyone listening and viewing today.
Yes, sir. You kicked us off for it today, so we might show a little bit more of this on Monday. But I'll talk to you this weekend, brother. I know you got stuff to do. It's past 10 o'clock. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
All right. Thanks, Amari. Folks, that was Dr. Jeffries that was with us. And also before him was City Councilor, the Honorable City Councilor Henry Santana. So glad to close out our Civic Engagement Week with 2 Black men, and even more excited that we kicked it off with 3 Black women on this week. And so we will do this probably every 2 years, because there is a municipal, we always do civic engagement on the platform, but intentionality about this week, we will probably do it again in 2025, because that is the next, we'll probably do it next year, because later on this year, I believe, is state rep, state senate. So maybe later on this year, we'll do another civic engagement week to talk and bring in our state reps and state senators and candidates. Announcements, as you see on the bottom of the screen, and you're about to see it again. I need to remind everybody, do not come in here next week at 9 a.m. You will be outside knocking on the Java Cafe door, because we will not open until 10 a.m. Next week, we are doing 10 a.m. Context again, sometime late fall, put a post up, ask folks, outside of 9 a.m., what is a great time or preferred time to watch Java with Jimmy, to be able to participate in the live broadcast. The 2 number 1 hours were 10 a.m. and 12 noon. And so what we're doing is we're testing 10 a.m. next week. And the week after that, we're testing 12 noon. So to avoid me getting texts, to avoid folks being worried that are you okay, you're not on at 9, we will not be here at 9 a.m. on Monday. On Monday, we will be here at 10 a.m. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Thursday, 10 a.m. And then the next week, we will be together at 12 noon, midday Java. All right. So just wanted to remind folks about that. I don't have any other announcements coming up outside of the fact that in February, we will do another Black Boston Then and Now, with probably some focus on the murder in Boston case and some other things. Revamp it a little bit different from last year. That is sort of an after dark space on a Sunday evening in February. And then in March, we celebrate 4 years. And so that date is coming as well. And the idea right now is to have the anniversary at the Java with Jimmy Studios location. That, last I heard, will be ready for, I think, full use, I think in May, the middle of May. And so I actually got to get over there. Haven't been over there in a while. That's it for me this morning. I want to thank all of our wonderful former and active elected officials that came into the room. Former City Councilor Kendra Laura, City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson, our City Council President Ruth C. Louis Jen, and also this morning City Councilor Henry Santana. And closing out Civic Engagement Week, but kicking off MLK Weekend is our Dr. Amari Parrish Jeffries. Just a note, it is a long weekend, celebratory weekend. Stay safe, folks. Stay safe. And even with all the celebrating, watch consumption and all things like that. So that's it for me. Let me just check the announcements before I go. Always good for a good laugh. Auntie Connie, what are y'all up to? Pam, thank you so much, sister. Have not forgot, you know what I mean. Miss Teresa said, can UCB come on 9 a.m. and just to get to our UCB? I know this might impact your points for the next 2 weeks. I'm sorry. But we want to increase our capacity and our impact as we're growing. If you're on YouTube, please go subscribe to Java with Jimmy on YouTube. YouTube is offering me some things, but then they put this little stipulation about how many followers. I've met the hours. I've over exceeded the hours. I just need to get 181 more subscribers over on YouTube. So please go subscribe, like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Instagram. Shout out to everybody that was listening on Instagram. The 4 of you that are still here. Good morning from California, Pastor Jermaine Nelson. Good to see you in the room from Cali, brother, out in the West Coast. I appreciate it. Auntie Java, thank you for going to YouTube. Michelle, that email is going out before end of week. I'm just getting back into the swing of things this week. That's it for me, everybody. This weekend is beginning, and we will see you next week. We are focusing on Mentoring Week on the 15th. We will celebrate MLK Day. Let me just, on the 16th, tell you who is coming in. January is Mentoring Month. And so next week, we on the 16th, we'll have Big Brother and Big Sister Association. Gene Bob will be with us on the 17th. Nate Sims from Mass Mentoring. And on the 18th, Andre Creighton, who runs a mentoring program out in Minnesota. We're going national. Let me tell y'all something else I found out yesterday. Well, it's on Instagram, but it's part of the Java growth. Our #1 city for engagement on Instagram is not Boston any longer. As of yesterday, I don't know when it changed. I looked yesterday. I was talking to Carlos Enriquez. Our #1 city for engagement on Instagram is New York City. Our second city is Boston. Our third city is Philly. And our fourth city is Chicago. We're growing, y'all. So keep that in mind. If we get away from some always Boston-centered topics, there are a lot of topics that impact us here that are national topics. And so y'all have prayed for it. Y'all have encouraged me to do it. And it's happening. And just hit me. All right, I'm getting off of here. Y'all have a wonderful long weekend. And I will eat Miss Teresa. And we'll talk to you guys on Monday. Monday's at 10 a.m. Yes, because after Sunday night, Jesus. Thank God. Ooh, we got an extra hour that will probably be needed. All right, y'all have a wonderful day. We'll talk to y'all soon.